Good morning, ma'am. When are we going to
Yes,
have the presentations for our marketing projects?
we'll discuss that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and we will start with a new topic. But before I start with the new topic, let us understand what we have done till now. We started discussing about product, and when we started discussing about product, we spoke about the three levels of the product: the core benefit, the actual product, and the augmented product. We discussed it with various examples, be it microwave, be it phone, be it Saregama Pa, Karwa, and so on. We further went ahead and then we understood the product portfolio or the product mix. We discussed the product life cycle, which is an extremely important topic where we saw that how the strategy differs in introduction versus growth versus maturity versus decline, and how similarly even the finances are affected in introduction versus growth versus maturity versus decline. The product life cycle showed us the importance of innovation, because if you don't innovate, then you tend to go towards a decline phase. For not to go in the decline phase, it is important that we innovate, and we innovate because the needs of the consumer start always change and you need to be updated about it. And that brought us to the importance of innovation. We discussed innovation, where I am extremely proud of the various innovations that have happened in our country, and they're so unique to our country. Be it Shakti Amma, be it, and I'm only talking about business innovations, be it IPC e-Chopal, be it the Mumbai Dabbawalas, be it Narayan Hridale, and so on and so forth. While discussing about innovations, we also understood that innovations can be viewed from different ways. But that brings us to the next topic, that, okay, fine, great, we innovate, we have a new product, but marketing is understanding the need, meeting the needs of the customer profitably. And we can only meet the needs of the customer profitably if those innovations reach the people, reaches the customer, which means that we need to understand that how do we ensure that an innovation diffuses among the customer. And that brings us to the topic of diffusion of innovation. Well, when I'm talking about diffusion of innovation, this is a very famous theory which was proposed by Dr. Everett Rogers way back. And there has been a lot of addition, deletion to it, but we are going to stick with the original theory. And so the diffusion of innovation, it says, it's a process by which the acceptance of an innovation is spread by communication to members of a social system over a period of time. Look at the importance of the words. First, it's a process. It is not that you innovate, you come up with a new product today, and tomorrow it becomes extremely popular. It's a process. It is acceptance of an innovation. Very important for marketing, because you can't force people to use your product. They have to accept it. We use communication. It is spread by communication, which talks about the various channels of communication, to members of a social system, which means the people, and very important, over a period of time. So it's not a phenomena that occurs overnight. It is a phenomena, it's a process that occurs over a period of time. And this definition itself somewhere gives us the 4 elements of diffusion of innovation. And it says the 4 elements are the innovation itself, the channels of communication, the social system, and finally, time, right? These are the 4 elements that you and I need to understand in detail in order to ensure that the innovation reaches the people. In this lecture, we will only discuss 2. First, the innovation itself, which we also discussed last time, and then we will discuss 3 most probably: the channels of communication and the social system. So let me do a quick revision of what we meant by innovation. For me, innovation is something very simple. Innovation is anything new which affects the lives of the people positively. As simple as that. Right? But having said that, as I also said, innovation is not something which we can really teach in a theory class. Innovation is an attitude, innovation is a passion, innovation is an ability to take risk, calculated risk, and innovation can be described by a number of ways. And last time I described to you, so it can be with respect to the firm. The example I gave you was, so for example, when Bajaj Auto decided to launch bikes, in the year 2000, it was not a new product. The world knew about bikes. However, it was a new product for Bajaj Auto, which till then was traditionally known as a scooter company. Product-oriented definition, the example I gave you was, so for example, when phone was discovered, it was a completely discontinuous innovation because nobody had heard of phone before, nobody had seen a phone before, nobody had used a phone before. So it was a discontinuous innovation. However, when we got cordless phone, that was a dynamically continuous innovation because we knew about the phone. We had got used to the phone. However, this was dynamic continuous because now I could go in any room of my house and talk to someone on the cordless phone. And finally, sorry, that was continuous. And mobile phone was a dynamically discontinuous innovation because this took me one step further. Now I could just get out of my house, be out there on the road and the streets and talk to anyone being any part of the world, right? So again, a perfect example of discontinuous innovation is also internet. So when internet came, nobody knew about what internet was. Nobody had heard about it before. And it was something absolutely new for us. Innovation can also be with respect to market. The example I gave you was color TV. So when color TV was introduced in India in the 1980s, early 1980s, again, it was not that color TV didn't exist. However, for the market called India, it was a new product. But what is important is at the end of the day, any innovation is only useful if your consumer perceives it to be new. If the consumer does not perceive it to be an innovation, then you may shout and shriek, but it is not an innovation, because never ever forget that marketing has nothing to do with the word I. Marketing is about we. Marketing is about respecting your consumer. If that's the first element, that is innovation, we now come to the next element, and which is, okay, I'll come back to this, which is, maybe let me explain the channels of communication with the help of an example, and which is the vaccines in India. Now, what do you mean by channel of communication? Channel of communication means how do you inform your consumers about your product? Because unless and until you inform your consumers, they will not know about it, right? We have discussed this while we did the theories of learning. We discussed it when we were doing perception. We need to understand that we need to educate our consumer. Our consumer may not know everything, and you and I as marketing people should not shy away from educating the consumer. So when we came to the vaccine channels of communication, for example, what did the government of India do? The government of India started educating us on various platforms, but the one which I really liked was our mobile phones. So I'm sure you too must have experienced it. The first call of the day when you make, before you can make the call, the moment you dial the number, you hear a message in the local language which tells you that how vaccine is extremely important to fight COVID. And if you are eligible for the vaccine, one should go and take it. Right channel of communication, because today mobile phone exists in every household, and even household is not the right word. Today every individual has a mobile phone. Maybe 20 years ago or 25 years ago, had the government tried to use this channel of communication, it would have been a flop, because at that point of time, people didn't have mobile phone. But today, mobile phone is a mass product, and everyone makes at least one call in a day. And what a beautiful strategy that your first call in the day starts with that little tape which tells you the importance of vaccine. One needs to understand that communicating with your consumer is the duty of every marketing person, and therefore you also need to be careful how you are communicating. You can't advertise a sports car on a religious channel. I mean, you can, nobody can stop you, but you are wasting your time and effort, right? So if you are advertising a sports car, it is important that you are on the right platforms. What are the right platforms? Maybe those platforms where cars are discussed, maybe which may be online or which may be offline, maybe those programs where sports cars are discussed. Also, it is important to have influencers and opinion leaders with you. You can't, if you want to advertise about toys, you should be on a kids channel or a kids platform, whether online or offline, or maybe on a platform where mothers visit. So channel of communication makes sense only if you use the right channels of communication. You're wasting your time and effort if you do not use the right channels of communication. So, which also brings me to this slide when we were talking about innovation. So, people have, there have been various queries, and as a student, I too would ask, hey, okay, I will innovate, but are there still any parameters to understand that which innovation will click and which will not click? Because statistics tell us that there's no dearth of innovations in the world, but the success rate is very, very less. So this is not I mean, there's nothing called 100% surety that if you do this, your product will succeed, but the probability is more. And the first one is relative advantage. And since we were talking about mobile phone, let me explain it with the help of a mobile phone. Does your product have an advantage over the existing products? So did mobile phone have a relative advantage over the existing landline and cordless phone? Of course, huge. I mean, it allowed you freedom. Freedom is something which every individual loves. It allowed you freedom to talk when you want, where you want, and therefore it had a huge relative advantage. Compatibility. What do we mean by compatibility? It is a degree to which consumers feel it is consistent with their present needs, values, and practices. So again, in simple language, it should not take you out of your comfort zone. We do not like it when we are forced to get out of our comfort zone. It's just like you do not like it when I tell you, please switch on your camera and show me your face, because I'm taking you out of your comfort zone of being anonymous. Anything that makes your consumer uncomfortable, he or she will always reject it. We discussed it when we were doing perception, when we said that why is it that the smokers do not see that smoking causes cancer? Because they do not look at it. It makes them uncomfortable. So does your product take your consumer to an uncomfortable zone? If somebody is trying to say something, I just heard a noise, I just unmute and speak. I can't see the other screen. So yeah, if it takes you to an uncomfortable zone, then the probability of accepting it becomes less. Was the mobile phone compatible with our needs? Oh yes, it was. I mean, people wanted freedom. People wanted to speak. People wanted more options to be able to communicate, because a human being is a social animal and we love communicating with everyone. Complexity. Again, please understand, Anything that is complex to use, people reject it. You and I, we reject it because we don't want complicated things in our life. The products which have always been successful are the ones which are easy to use. Now, don't confuse it with the easy to manufacturing part. Again, look at the mobile phone. The back-end technology may be very, very complicated, very, very complex, but it doesn't bother you and me, the consumer, because we are only interested in how easy it is to use. And that's the reason why smartphones became so popular, because they were so easy to use. They were so easy to learn. I mean, I didn't really have to have any intellectual capacity to learn how to use a mobile phone. So the more easy to use your product is for your consumer, the probability of it becoming a success increases. Triability is related directly to perceived risk. Again, a topic which we had discussed before. And what is perceived risk? Perceived risk is the risk that your customer thinks exists while buying a product. It may or may not exist in reality, but then reality has nothing to do with life. It's what we perceive things, which actually is the reality for us. So in order to decrease the perceived risk, a consumer always wants a trial. So whether it's buying our clothes, we want to try them out first. When you go to buy a car, they allow you a test drive because they want to decrease your perceived risk. Rather than buying a new shampoo worth 200, 300 rupees, we prefer buying that little sachet of 2, 3 rupees or 5 rupees or 10 rupees because we want to decrease our perceived risk. And only when we are comfortable, we go ahead and buy the big bottle. The mobile phone, could it be tried? Yes. I mean, in the sense that maybe, I mean, the triability was limited in the sense that you did not get free phones or something like it, but you could always get a response from others who were using it. The communication was fast. Add all this or multiply all this, whatever, and that's what leads to observability, which means that the benefits, the more the benefits are visible, the more people will try to use your product, brand, or service. The benefits of mobile phone were so visible that the world did not hesitate in adopting it at the earliest. Okay, so while this was the first element, as I said, the second, channels of communication. And let's now come to the third element, which is the social system. What do you mean by the social system? Social system means the people, the masses, the consumer, the customer. So what's so big about it? Well, you need to understand that the social system of one particular country may be extremely different from the social system of another country. And again, let me explain this with an example. So old age homes. I mean, if you look at old age homes is a pretty recent phenomena in India. In fact, it's still not picked up, and I don't even know whether it will pick up or not. Why? Because in our social system, children are supposed to take care of the elders of the house. We do not think it nice to send our elders to an old age home. The society does not view that very nicely, and therefore old age homes is not something which is a very favorable thing in a country like India. Of course, times are changing. The youth is no longer interested in taking care of their parents, and maybe in the coming years it will change. However, compare this to the Western countries where old age homes are a norm, where it is a way of life that yes, after a certain age, maybe you have to move to an old age home because your family, your children will not look after you. Another way to understand, I always say, to explain this, last time I had showed you Gert Hofstede matrix. There are other ways also, but maybe let me again, if I have it, yeah, show you the Gert Hofstede matrix and help you understand. So let me type India, yeah, India, and maybe United States, where the difference is very huge. Okay, let me see. Yeah, now look at this. Individualism versus collectivism. While India's score is 48, the score of United States is 91. What does it mean? The social system of India is very different from the social system of United States. While in India, we prefer taking decisions as a group. That group may be the team in the office, or that group may be the family. In United States, they encourage you to take most probably your own decisions, right? So uh, the way you will, the innovation, the way you will communicate with the people in United States will be very different from the way you will communicate with the people in India. Look at power distance. The power distance in India is very high, 77 versus 40 in United States. And yes, it does exist in India. And the best way to understand any country, I always say, or any culture, is to learn their language. Look at our language. Let me explain power distance with the help of the language. So Hindi, in order to address someone else in Hindi, we have three words: tu, tum, aap. Aap is when we give respect. More we use it for the elders or anyone to whom we want to give respect. Tum is used with our closed ones, our family, so on and so forth. Tu is not really used. It's not really encouraged to use tu. You can see the power distance. You can see, yes, we do have different ways to address different people, which is tu, tum, aap. Compare it to the English language. There is only one way to address: you. Everyone is addressed as you, right? So that tells you about the power distance. Let me come back to the... So, as I said, it's important to understand the social system, because what may work in one country may not work in another country. I've always said this: culture is some part of social system. It is so important. So many examples where you will see the product, it may be very good, but it failed because it did not understand the social system of a country. The all-time favorite examples, which I have discussed, I don't know, a billion times, most probably, are McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Kellogg's, where the social system, they had to respect the social system in order to survive. Yeah? At this point of time, maybe let me take a break, because the next thing, which is time, is something which needs a detailed discussion, and it needs to be understood in depth, because this is extremely important. So maybe let me just stop here and understand that when we are talking about diffusion process, the four elements of diffusion process is the innovation itself, channels of communication, social system, and time. What we have discussed till now is innovation, communication, and the social system. We will discuss time tomorrow. In case anyone has any concern, issues, contribution, or you haven't understood, please go ahead and let me know.
Ma'am, can you just show the last slide?
The four elements?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 1 minute. 1 minute. This one?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Any question or?
No, ma'am. I just wanted to see the last point.
Okay, so if there is no other question, then great. Then let me stop the class over here on this topic, and we will continue with diffusion of innovation tomorrow, discussing the time.